and our players across the league are too often the targets. This is not something any player in this league should have to tolerate.
Do you think Caitlin's being used as a pawn? Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening, and that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us.
You know what? It seems like absolutely everyone, from the casual fan to the seasoned analyst, is just completely stunned by what's been unfolding recently in the WNBA. But honestly, for those of us who've been truly paying attention, those of us who've been watching the undercurrents, this pivotal moment felt, in a way, almost inevitable. The whole situation truly exploded right here, right now. And believe me, you're going to want to stick around to the very end of this video to fully grasp just why the Indiana Fever are on the verge of making some truly massive, game-changing adjustments. The club, very recently, dropped a series of incredibly significant announcements, including a revelation about their superstar, Caitlin Clark, that has sent genuine shockwaves reverberating through the entire league, leaving everyone buzzing. And here's the absolute kick, the detail that truly magnifies the intensity of this moment. Right in the middle of all this unprecedented chaos, the legendary Sue Bird stepped forward and with an almost palpable force, absolutely brutally denounced the rampant, insidious racism she saw poisoning the WNBA. Let's be brutally real about this. This kind of outspokenness, this level of truth-telling, was long, long overdue. Think about it for a second. Countless legends, multiple MVPs, gold medalists, they've all quietly endured similar obstacles and faced comparable, deeply frustrating challenges throughout their careers, often in silence. But then, almost out of nowhere, someone, in this case, Sue Bird, finally found the immense courage, the sheer audacity to truly speak out, to shatter that silence and demand accountability. Sue Bird wasn't just talking to hear herself speak either. Oh no, she came armed with what I can only describe as pyrotechnics, bringing the kind of searing heat and undeniable truth that you simply cannot, absolutely cannot ignore. And let me tell you, the Indiana Fever, to their credit, recognized the gravity of her words. They can't ignore them. They responded to this with an impact that will undoubtedly define their future, shaping the very trajectory of their organization. But before we get into the incredibly juicy specifics of all that,
Continue. There is one thing I want to reset, that we want to reset, and it's the language being used around fans. Fever fans, Caitlin fans, new fans. That actually has to go.
and the most incredible, almost unbelievable part of this entire unfolding drama, Sue Bird, with everything on the line, with her reputation and legacy potentially at stake, didn't even hesitate for a second to dive deep into a no-holds-barred podcast conversation with none other than the fiercely outspoken Megan Rapinoe. This was a massive risk, a move that could have been potentially career-ruining for a lesser personality, but she went forward anyway, completely unbowed. On that podcast, with a clear, unwavering voice, she fearlessly put forward the hard, uncomfortable questions that many had been too afraid to ask. She wanted to know, in no uncertain terms, why Caitlin Clark was suddenly becoming the target of such intense, often racially charged hatred. Why were her truly outstanding accomplishments, her record-breaking sales numbers, her undeniable, quantifiable impact on the sport? Why was all of it being so blatantly and seemingly intentionally disregarded? And then, you know what's even more insane, even more thought-provoking? She went a step further, subtly, yet powerfully, dropping hints about the very real possibility of a systemic league conspiracy specifically targeting Caitlin Clark. Just let that sink in for a moment. The implications are staggering.
Janae, did you, when you went and kind of swatted at Caitlin, did you intend to hit her in the eye? And if so, could you just, or if not, either way, could you talk about what happened on that play?
I don't even know why I would intend to hit anybody in the eye. That doesn't even make sense to me. But no, I didn't. I didn't know I hit her, actually. I was trying to make a play on the ball, and I guess I followed through and I hit her. So obviously it's never intentional. That's not even like the type of player that I am. So yeah.
Did you and Marina kind of laugh about it afterwards? It looked like there was later on in the game they caught you guys laughing about it.
No, I just told you I didn't even know I hit her. So I can't laugh about something I didn't know happened.
So where did this entire complex situation truly begin to boil over, transforming from simmering tensions into a full-blown inferno? It actually kicked off when Day Carrington found herself being questioned by journalist Christine after a game about what, at the time, seemed like a rather odd, perhaps even innocuous occurrence on the court. Now, I know what you're probably thinking right now, because it's a natural assumption you'd likely assume this was just another standard, run-of-the-mill post-game query, right? Athletes are constantly fielding questions about all sorts of challenging circumstances, controversies, and intense on-court incidents. But this time, oh man, things took a remarkably sharp turn, and they went south fast. Megan Rapinoe, with her characteristic sharp wit and uncanny ability to cut straight to the core of an issue, immediately retorted that despite how innocent the question might have appeared on the surface, its very phrasing, its subtle implications, carried a deeply unsettling racial undertone. And just like that, in a flash, a completely fresh, a frankly absolutely critical and profoundly necessary perspective on the entire topic abruptly surfaced, shifting the narrative entirely and forcing everyone to reevaluate what they thought they understood.
Obviously, hearing it initially, my visceral reaction was like, that's not good. That doesn't feel good. That feels racist, to be honest.
And let's be brutally, unequivocally honest here. That seems racist was the undeniable, visceral feeling that permeated the air and social media. Sue Bird, being the fiercely independent and principled Sue Bird that she is, simply could not and would not let this moment pass without embracing her customary rebellious posture, without speaking her truth. She didn't just critique the situation, she openly slammed the media, singling out ESPN in particular for what she perceived as their blatant sensationalizing and twisting of the situation into something far more inflammatory and divisive than it needed to be. Her point was crystal clear, and it hit with the force of an undeniable truth. The original question itself might not have been inherently racist, that's debatable, but the way the media then chose to frame, package, and present it, oh, that, my friends, was absolutely unequivocally troublesome and irresponsible. Sue meticulously pointed out a stark, undeniable truth that often gets overlooked. Athletes of color are routinely subjected to an exponentially higher degree of scrutiny and criticism compared to their white counterparts in similar situations. Think about it this way, and really let this resonate. What happens, really, when a black athlete gets involved in a similar on-court situation, an incident, or a minor controversy? Suddenly, almost immediately, it escalates beyond a simple incident. It morphs into a far more serious problem, a heated disagreement, or, more often than not, it tragically devolves into a full-blown racial controversy. It's a double standard that's so glaring, so pervasive, that it's frankly impossible to ignore once you truly open your eyes to it.
I disagree with you on Christine Brennan's question being dickish, or maybe she shouldn't have answered it, because it was something that was out there that everybody was talking about. And so she asked the question, and it was a great opportunity for Carrington to, on the record, say, no, I didn't do it. And that's all that happened. So I do disagree with you. I don't think it was a dickish question. I think it was a fine question based on what was going on at the moment.
Sue, ever the astute observer with a profound understanding of these complex dynamics, immediately connected the dots, articulating with undeniable clarity that this wasn't just an isolated incident, some random anomaly. Oh no, it was unmistakably part of a much, much larger and deeply ingrained picture, a systemic issue that runs deep within the sport and wider society. And she said this while she was practically still warming up, indicating how readily apparent these patterns were to her. Journalist Christine, for her part, courageously stepped up and directly reprimanded both the WNBA and the media for what she saw as their egregious failure to contain and, frankly, for actively allowing these damaging, divisive rumors to fester and spread unchecked. This was a bold move, especially since she herself hadn't initially intended for things to spiral quite so far out of control. Now here's where Sue's insight truly hits hard, where her analysis cuts to the core of the issue. She firmly believes, and articulated this with conviction, that if Day Carrington had been a white athlete, this entire event, this entire controversy would have received significantly less attention, probably blowing over with barely a ripple, a minor blip on the radar. However, and this is crucial, this is the stark contrast. If a white player had been in Carrington's exact position, we would have been treated to an absolutely full-fledged, meticulously crafted narrative, complete with every single possible ramification, every emotional angle explored to its fullest, most dramatic extent. The double standard couldn't be clearer, and it speaks volumes about the underlying biases at play.
It led to the Twitter trolls and bots taking over. And what started there was this narrative of petty, jealous players hating on Caitlyn. That's really what happened. That's where it started. That we must just dislike her, that we look at her side-eyed, that we don't want her to come in the WNBA and be successful, that we're hating on her, right? So we're petty and we're...
In the immediate aftermath of this situation, it was nothing short of a full-scale Twitter takeover, with the platform swarming with bots and automated tools, all amplifying a toxic, divisive narrative. And it all kicked off with this unbelievably flimsy, yet incredibly pervasive story, implying that small-minded, envious gamers were simply despising Caitlin Clark. In fact, that's precisely what transpired. That's exactly the message that was being pushed. The narrative began with this insidious idea that we just don't like her, that we can't see things from her perspective, that we don't want her to succeed in the WNBA, and that we are despising her because of some inherent flaw in. So essentially, the message being aggressively propagated was, we are envious and petty, and it's our fault. And here's where it gets truly wild, truly mind-boggling. Sue went on to painstakingly explain how a single, seemingly innocuous comment from none other than Diana Taurasi, one of the most iconic and revered figures in the entire sport, was the spark that ignited this entire dangerous, racially charged narrative. Yes, the legend herself made the casual decision to utter a statement so inherently powerful, so easily misinterpreted, that it literally set the WNBA ablaze, sending it into a tailspin. We're talking about complete, unadulterated chaos erupting across social media and the league itself, all because of the crazy, unforeseen, and ultimately devastating rippling impact those initial words had. Our resident voice of reason, Sue Bird, had no choice but to step in and to lucidly, bravely break down exactly what was happening, providing clarity amidst the storm. And this time, it had a far greater, more destructive effect than anyone, even Sue, could have possibly anticipated. When Sue stated unequivocally that things became ugly, she wasn't just referring to the typical rough-and-tumble competition or the occasional on-court squabbling that's a part of any physical sport. No, she meant something far more profound and disturbing. The game fundamentally stopped being about basketball, about skill and competition, the very moment blatant hate speech started to rear its ugly head and infiltrate the discussion. You see, when fans start getting genuinely upset about issues that extend far beyond the game itself, issues like deeply entrenched racism, unacknowledged privilege, and every other ugly facet you could possibly imagine, that's when you know you've irrevocably crossed a line.
Not at any point did I think anybody was playing dirty against Caitlyn. Not at any point did I think Caitlyn was targeted. And I'm going to stop on that word because what happened was these petty jealousy narratives that got formed. Then when the season started and people saw people blocking Caitlyn's shot or picking her up full court, it then became, oh, they're targeting her. Oh, they're targeting.
And then, just when you thought the situation couldn't get any more intense, Sue Bird dropped another bombshell, revealing that Caitlin Clark was forced to grapple with far, far more than just the usual elbows, the expected physicality, and the nasty trash talk that's often part of high-level competition. Oh no, this was different. This was a whole new level of targeting. We're not talking about symbolic blows here. Caitlin was literally dodging real ones. Physical assaults disguised as basketball plays. What's more, she felt an immense, crippling pressure to be constantly prepared for threats that went far beyond mere opposing team strategies every single time she stepped onto the court. This was absolutely not fair play. This was outright malicious. Players were actively maliciously making fun of her, openly mocking her. Sue made it unequivocally clear that this wasn't just about putting up a strong defense, about the typical rough and tumble, the expected physicality of a WNBA game, or even the heightened intensity of a rivalry. All of that paled in comparison to the sheer vitriol and coordinated targeting Caitlyn was enduring. This was deeply personal, and it was undeniably nasty. Crucially, Sue, with her profound understanding of the racial dynamics at play in the league, did not for a single moment minimize the undeniable racial aspect of the situation. She articulated that there was a complex, multi-layered dynamic to Caitlyn's situation that extended far beyond simply why she was garnering so much attention or why she appeared to be promoted over other players. It was a volatile, combustible mix of racism, privilege, and the deeply rooted frustrations of how some players of color perceived her accomplishment as a metaphor for something much, much larger. A symbol that was, in their eyes, overshadowing her actual basketball skill and hard work. Sue didn't hold back one bit. She called it as she saw it. This wasn't merely a sports problem anymore. Instead, it had become a potent, undeniable reflection of the wider systemic background of racism permeating the league and the boiling over frustrations that were now disturbingly playing out in real time, right there on the court, with Caitlin Clark tragically caught right in the brutal, unrelenting middle of it all.
That it is right now, like it's popping right now, and just being able to know that, like, I'm happy where I'm happy to see all the girly girls being able to pop it and look cute on the runway and being able to continue that. Because
now shifting gears entirely, it's essential to acknowledge that some of the most vocal critics, prominent players like Angel Reese and Alyssa Thomas, have evidently argued that Caitlin Clark is essentially getting the white girl pass, receiving undue favoritism. They certainly haven't been silent. In fact, they've been quite public and direct in their criticisms. They've even gone so far as to accuse Caitlin Clark and her burgeoning fan base of underlying racism. Sue Bird, in her signature candid, no-nonsense style, spoke openly and frankly about Angel Reese and Alyssa Thomas, almost as if she'd been holding on to this tea, this crucial insight for far too long, and it was finally definitively time to spill it all. Let me tell you about these two. Angel Reese, ever since her explosive, attention-grabbing time at LSU, has been nothing short of vocal, incredibly self-assured, and unapologetically confident. And Alyssa Thomas, she's a certified cornerstone, a foundational, indispensable player for the Connecticut Sun, an absolute force on the court. Both of these powerful athletes contend that Caitlin is, in their eyes, the WNBA's poster child for white privilege, asserting that she's receiving preferential, special treatment, not because of her unparalleled, undeniable skills, but solely because of the color of her skin. This is a heavy accusation, indeed, and it's fueling an absolutely raging firestorm of debate, intensifying the divisions within the league and among fans.
All of what I've said led to this group of people being able to push those racist agendas, which really has been, in my opinion, the cause of all of this. And everybody from this moment on has, not everybody, but a lot of people have been operating under the assumption that these narratives, particularly the targeting narrative, is true. And that has...
But Sue, what about her reaction to these damning, emotionally charged accusations? Well, let me tell you, Sue Bird was absolutely, unequivocally not going to stand for it. Not for a single second. She made it her personal mission, doing everything within her considerable power and influence to unequivocally demonstrate that this white privilege narrative, as it was being applied here, was not only deeply flawed, but entirely false, and it desperately needed to be abandoned, and abandoned right now. This simply isn't the case, she declared, loudly, and with crystal clear conviction, her voice resonating with authority. Because in her view, what Angel Reese and Alyssa Thomas were doing was not just ethically questionable, it was actively, profoundly damaging to the league itself and to all its players. She saw it as tearing down rather than building up, creating more division instead of fostering unity. And for a legendary figure like Bird, that was simply unacceptable.
Racism has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new
for
thing.
sure.
This is, and in that way, I do think Caitlin's being used as a pawn. Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this. We've been trying to...
Here's the core of Sue Bird's perspective, her ultimate, clear-eyed take on the entire tumultuous situation. Look, she was essentially saying, Caitlin is undeniably getting a ton of attention, that much is obvious, but let's not for a second pretend that it's just because she's white. That simplistic explanation misses the entire point. It's because she is an absolutely amazing, once-in-a-generation player, a talent that comes along perhaps once every few decades. Bird firmly believes that this entire incident has been deliberately twisted, maliciously warped into a sprawling narrative that bears almost no resemblance to reality whatsoever. A fabricated story. Sue, with her sharp intellect and unwavering integrity, was simply not going to allow Reese and Thomas to sensationalize or misrepresent this situation, especially when Caitlin Clark is already so intensely, sometimes unfairly, in the limelight. Let's be honest, Bird herself has risen incredibly quickly through the ranks, achieving unparalleled success, and her dominance on the court, her sheer impact, is undeniably, spectacularly evident to anyone who watches her play. She earns her spotlight, just like Caitlin Clark does.
She's obviously doing amazing. Her game speaks for itself. I think my favorite part is just women's basketball, women's sports really, but women's basketball has been on the rise. And it's kind of like what Magic and Bird was to men's basketball. Like this moment, we kind of needed something.
This, right now, with Caitlin, this is that one defining moment, that transformative era we've all been waiting for. And I think a huge part of what makes her that moment has to do with her iconic, gravity-defying logo three-pointers. Shots that literally electrify stadiums. Now prepare yourselves for one of the most shocking disclosures of all, a detail that truly changes the perception of this entire saga. Sue Bird actually claimed to have communicated with Caitlin Clark personally, truly getting to know her, understanding her journey, and hearing her perspective directly. And you know what that means for the entire white privilege narrative that Thomas and Reese have been pushing so aggressively. Indeed, Sue emphatically clarified that Caitlin is absolutely not some privileged athlete who just magically gains advantages simply because of her skin color or background. Instead, much like every other dedicated, hard-working player in the league, she has been putting in an immense amount of relentless effort, grinding tirelessly, and legitimately earning her ascent through the rankings every single step of the way. Bird, ever courageous and never one to shy away from uncomfortable truths, isn't afraid to openly admit that the entire problem, the underlying issues, are far, far more complicated and deeply nuanced than most people are truly willing to realize or acknowledge. This divisive narrative, she asserts, must be removed from the conversation. I can totally understand why it's been used sometimes, she might concede, acknowledging the historical context. It's incredibly easy to just casually dismiss the entire Fever fan base, or to react defensively when you're hit with a tough question during an interview. But here's the stark reality, and this is crucial for everyone to understand. Since they aren't exclusively Fever fans, meaning not every new fan is a part of that team's traditional base, all of these new fans must leave. No, wait, that's not right. Fans of Caitlin herself are not all involved in the toxicity. There are a lot of persons in the group. Let's be clear, when we consider the entire Fever fan community, we're talking about a truly sizable and incredibly diverse population. As we dig into the uncomfortable specifics of this, we are in fact discussing a toxic, deeply problematic segment of that overall fan organization. Individuals who are actively promoting hate speech, pushing insidious racial agendas, and fueling internet division purely for chaos. Oh, I see, they're acting as fans, performing as Fever fans, but their true intentions are far from it, they're saboteurs. And at this precise point, things have escalated to become truly profoundly bad. Sue Bird adamantly claims that this entire racial problem has been cynically weaponized, transforming into an outright excuse for other players to mistreat Caitlin Clark, not just verbally but physically, right there on the court. It very much appears that the serious charge of racism is being shamelessly used as a pretext to unfairly attack her, to justify unacceptable behavior. And the whole issue is no longer contained within the realm of basketball strategy or healthy competition. Bird made it abundantly clear that this is no longer just a competitive game. People are intentionally targeting Caitlyn with their deeply personal grievances in an utterly inappropriate and dangerous manner. Whether those grievances stem from deep-seated racism, sheer jealousy, or any other ugly negative emotion, it's unacceptable. So in addition to enduring relentless verbal abuse, Caitlyn is also being subjected to blatant roughing up and deliberate elbowing, the kind of physical play that goes beyond normal contact. Everything is becoming far too intimate, too personal. Just look at Lady Carter's cheap shot on Caitlin Clark in that one play. It screamed foul, and as Caitlyn herself said, it was just not a basketball play, it was something else entirely. When Sue asserts that the entire racial bias debate has been weaponized and is fundamentally beneficial to nobody, absolutely nobody, she is pulling no punches whatsoever. She believes players like Reese and Thomas are actively worsening the already volatile situation by using the court as a battleground for their own personal grievances, instead of genuinely working to address the real systemic racial issues that undeniably exist within the league. Now, to be absolutely clear, Caitlyn is not saying that we shouldn't talk about race. That's a critical distinction. Instead, she is passionately arguing that this current approach is entirely the wrong course of action, that it's counterproductive. Instead of fostering unity and bringing people together, what's happening to Caitlyn is only serving to make society even more divided, creating deeper rifts. So the burning question remains, what will the Indiana Fever do in direct response to this unprecedented, deeply troubling situation? This kind of divisiveness is absolutely not what true supporters of the Fever or the WNBA are all about. It's not what the organization stands for, and it certainly doesn't reflect any of us in any manner, shape, or form. I believe we are now finally in a position to boldly move forward, to make real changes, and let me tell you, it's also an incredibly thrilling, pivotal period for the team as they look ahead. So what's the very next action? Where do we go from here? How can we possibly climb up to the coveted top 4 seeds from our current 6th place position amidst all this? Honestly, none of us were truly prepared for the sheer intensity of what Caitlyn's rookie year was going to be like. In my opinion, Caitlyn is an absolutely terrific player, a generational talent, and we all felt she would have a significant immediate impact on the team, bringing new life and excitement. But like any rookie stepping into the greatest league in the world, it was simply going to take some time to adjust, to find her footing. Well, she certainly did adjust, and then some, far exceeding those initial expectations. The thing about Caitlyn, though, is that she is ridiculously competitive. She wants to win every single exercise, even a simple shooting drill, and that fierce relentlessly encourages her to strive for unparalleled greatness, to constantly push her limit. In this past year, she accomplished things that unequivocally placed her in that elite category among the very best. She makes everyone around her undeniably better, elevating their play, because of her exceptional game vision, her incredible playmaking skills, and her innate ability to engage and elevate every single person on the court. However, I would confidently argue that she actually surpassed every expectation, simply because I genuinely don't believe any of us truly understood the full scope of what her impact would look like, how profound it would be. So, with all that said, what are the crucial next steps for the Indiana Fever? The Fever are on the cusp of experiencing a truly major transformation, a seismic shift within the organization. Even though all the intricate details haven't been explicitly laid out yet, they're coming. And let me tell you, now that Amber Cox has officially arrived, bringing her formidable reputation, nobody is truly safe. Changes are inevitable. Kelly Kroskov was recently reinstated as the Fever's president of basketball and business operations, while the organization simultaneously just appointed a brand new general manager, creating a powerful new leadership structure. This new, powerful front office will be attempting to enact some truly major adjustments as players inevitably come and go, and new ones join the squad throughout the winter months. Caitlin Clark, unfortunately, will likely lose some close friends in this process, which is always tough. But crucially, she will also see certain individuals, like head coach Christian Sides, who she would undeniably want to see go. Actually, yes, you heard that right. They will be dismissing their own coach this winter. The Indiana Fever will absolutely, unequivocally be reshaped, refined, and appended by these monumental modifications, steering them towards a dramatically different, hopefully brighter, and more successful future. So what are your thoughts about all of this? When the 2025 season officially tips off, are you anticipating significant, tangible changes within the Fever organization? With a completely revamped team, strategically centered around the unparalleled talent of Caitlin Clark, they will definitely be able to fiercely compete for a coveted spot in the top 4, a true contender.